This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to episode number 138. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 18th of January 2010. Nice to have you with us. If you recall, you heard me say this a couple of times already, in the 2009 Project Management Podcast Listener Survey, one thing that was clear is you said, we want to hear more about products. Cornelius, tell us more about project management related products. Well, guess what? This episode today is just another one of those episodes where we will be discussing a product. In particular, it's going to be a mentoring workshop that you can attend. Yeah, but you know me. I want to help improve project management around the world, so there is no way that we could have an episode without really good tips and tricks and practical application of the topic that we are going to be talking about. And my guest today is Dux Raymond Sy. Dux, are you here?
I'm here. Thank you for having me. Happy New Year.
Oh, absolutely. Well, everyone, you remember Dux probably from episode number 119, where we talked about his book, SharePoint for Project Management. That's what it's called, right?
That's right.
And you are here today to talk to us about your seminar series, which is titled Delivering SharePoint Success, Mentoring Workshops. But before we get into that, let's turn to Twitter. I always like to look at people's Twitter profiles. And in your Twitter profile, you call yourself SharePoint Sensei, Pragmatic PM, Prolific Author, Dynamic Speaker. That's a lot. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do. What's behind these words?
Thank you. A lot of people ask me about it too, and I said there's one more thing missing is aspiring chef, but I don't think that would fit well with that line. Anyway, I'm a managing partner with Innovative E. We're an organization of experts around project management, business, and more importantly, technologies like SharePoint. So what I do specifically in my organization is I do a couple of things. I help manage a lot of our projects that relates with SharePoint and enterprise project management related deployments that we help our clients with. That's one. And second, also, I'm more along the lines, lack of a better word, the evangelist, the mascot, if you may, of the organization, where I engage a lot of people through social media, through presentation in major events, technology related or project management related events. And really what we hope to achieve in a lot of the work we do is to help organizations better themselves and be empowered, and more importantly, find the benefits of technology to meet their business needs. We believe that being able to support or deliver key solutions to challenges business face day to day, like project management, is very, very important, rather than just throwing technology and say, okay, see ya, here's the technology. So that's what we do. And that's why I'm really excited about this workshop that we're offering.
All right, well, let's jump right into the workshop. Again, title is Delivering SharePoint Success, Mentoring Workshop. And at some point, we need to talk about that title, Mentoring Workshop. I'd like to know what that is all about as well. But let me read a couple of sentences here from the opening. Microsoft SharePoint has shifted the paradigm in enterprise information management and team collaboration. That's what you say here on the workshop website.
Right.
By empowering knowledge workers, SharePoint can increase worker productivity, improve business process efficiency, and streamline business processes. All right, why?
Very good question. And that's one of the key questions I always ask my customers or people I talk to. So this is the promise of SharePoint as a tool, as a technology, but really what does that mean? So for example, let's think about project management, since most of your listeners are in the project management realms. If you think about managing projects, we engage in a lot of little challenges that we think it's a necessary evil, but it could be improved upon with technologies like SharePoint. For example, Where do you keep your project artifacts? In the recent survey, it was found out that the tool that project managers use a lot today, we like to admit it or not, is email. Yeah, like if somebody was looking for the requirements document, where do you look for it? Well, it's in the email. Where's their
Yeah,
status
you're
meeting
right.
update? It's in the email. So that's one. And then maybe if you get audited, you need to pull up some other artifact. Maybe it's in the network share, or maybe it's in that Excel file. So that's one challenge. Very poor project artifact management. And sometimes we say, it is what it is. And then another challenge is how many times have you end up, for example, in your project, you have to enter key project information in Excel or a Microsoft project. Yet you do the exact same thing, take the same set of information, and maybe you enter it in your financial system in your organization. And take the same set of information, enter it in, I don't know, some third-party products. So you've just entered the same set of information in three different places. Now, how much time did you spend? That's one challenge. And then the next question becomes, if you're in a highly compliant environment, where's the true record? Does that mean the next time you update one set of information, you forgot to update the other? What's going to happen to that? So with SharePoint, it can streamline all this. So it could be as simple as, for example, if you work with SharePoint, you have a project management website, you enter the data for your meeting in this project management website using SharePoint, automatically it's going to stream through Outlook, and maybe you have your Outlook connected to your BlackBerry, it's going to come through there too. So you don't have to do it three times. And that I see is very, very powerful to enable us to improve efficiency and, more importantly, do our jobs as project managers and not worry about where the data is.
Let's talk quickly about the actual content of the workshop, or what it contains, rather. Because when I think of project management and SharePoint, I can think of two areas. A is how to run a project in setting up SharePoint for your organization.
Correct.
Sort of, we don't have SharePoint, we'd like to implement SharePoint. What's the best way of doing it? Or the second aspect could be, I have a project, I want to use SharePoint. What's the best way of setting it up? Which of these two is it, or is it both?
It's actually the first one. You made a great
Good.
point about the second one, because that's essentially the book I wrote. And
Yes.
the book I wrote, I said SharePoint for project management. That assumes you already have SharePoint in place appropriately, and you're going to leverage that platform as a project manager to help you better manage projects. So a lot of the things I've discussed in the book, that's the intent. But this workshop, it's actually the opposite. If I were to frame or put the words, flip it, it would be like project management for SharePoint. So
Right. How do I manage a project in order to set up SharePoint for my company and
correct.
do it right,
Absolutely.
so that the end result is done correctly to help my business? What did you call it? Increase worker productivity, improve business process efficiency, and streamline business processes. Correct?
You've got it.
Perfect. Now, why did you decide to create such a workshop? Because after all, setting up SharePoint is a question of telling your IT guy, please install SharePoint on our server, and they do it for you, and it's done.
That's what a lot of people think. And so here's what's going on today. So SharePoint being a web-based technology, yeah, certainly you can look at it and figure it out. Once IT installed it, you can go run with it. But one of the challenges we see today is SharePoint is a misunderstood technology. What a lot of people look at SharePoint, they look at it as if, wow, you know what? It's like installing Office, or it's like installing, a new server, and we're good. But fact of the matter is, what's exciting about SharePoint is a business platform. It can be leveraged for project management. It can be leveraged for the human resources group. It can be leveraged for the operations group, etc. And the challenge today is, what's happening is, based on the example you just described, imagine if IT, let's say, IT is a rich uncle, gave you a Lamborghini Diablo. Cornelius, you know what a Lamborghini?
Oh, I would be forever in his debt.
That's right. So you walk out the house, you see this Lamborghini Diablo, nice car, nice machine, expensive machine, and then you kind of ooh and ah for this first 10 minutes, and then you go, okay, there's a problem. I just learned how to ride a bike yesterday. And my staff has just been cut. I've got more work. I just don't have time to figure it out. I'll just leave it in the garage. It looked nice, but I'll still ride my bike. I know it's slow, but it works. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's a pocket of people where they see this nice Lamborghini Diablo. They know they don't know how to work it, but they still get into the car, try and ride it, and then, uh-oh, this is stick. I don't even know how to use this. Let me call AAA, or no, IT. And then there's that constant struggle with IT would say, well, we rolled out SharePoint. What are you complaining about? And then the business, specifically in this case, the PM would go, you gave us this massive toolbox. We don't really know what to do with it. And we don't have time for this. And that's what's going on. And the idea of the workshop is really to bridge that gap before the fact. So in this workshop, I spent 2 days working one-on-one with the attendees and talk to them about, look, SharePoint's a great thing, but let's look at how you assess it for your organization. What business value does it bring? In terms of project management, for example, what are the tool sets that you have? And most importantly, I kind of talked to you about this, Cornelius, what kind of processes do you have right now, and what is the level of maturity your organization would have? Because people would say, SharePoint is a silver bullet. It's going to fix every problem in the organization. Yeah, possibly. But one thing people don't think about, for example, if I ask you, Cornelius, for a silver bullet to work, what do we need?
A gun?
That's right. And in this case, the gun is understanding what the right processes are and the right people, and then we use this silver bullet to make the technology work. But the problem is people just take this silver bullet without a gun. Imagine getting a handful of bullets and throwing it at somebody. Will it work? Not quite. You might hurt somebody, but it'll just be annoying rather than effective. So that's the idea of the workshop.
All right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Cool. In a moment, we're going to announce how one project management podcast listener will be able to get into your course for free, and how the others will be able to get a discount. But first, let's take a look at the seminar a little bit more in detail here, the whole administrative side, let's call it that. But first of all, who is this course for?
This course is intended for decision makers, project managers, analysts, essentially the key stakeholders that would decide and manage the rollout of SharePoint to an organization. And when I say organization, you can be a Fortune 500 large organization, or it could just be looking at your PMO, for example, or your department. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be rolled out to you benefit only if it's going to be rolled out to thousands and thousands of people. But the fact is that you are a key decision maker in wanting to roll this out. And this also includes IT.
Mm-hmm. What will they learn? And maybe this is where the whole mentoring comes into play as well. What do you mean by mentoring? So what will they learn? How's mentoring fit into this?
So the idea of mentoring is the idea of teaching, and the teacher is the person, or the mentor is the person who's been there and done that. We developed this mentoring workshop based on our own experiences in helping organizations effectively deploy SharePoint. So what we will cover in this workshop is we'll teach attendees on how you can initiate organizational buy-in with SharePoint, because that's one of the key things that people are talking about. Dux, how do you get people to use SharePoint? How do you get people to get excited about SharePoint? So we'll teach you how to do that. We'll show you an effective and practical project management process in deploying SharePoint. In fact, we map out how do you initiate a SharePoint project, what are the key things that you should be doing, which stakeholders you have to bring on board, how do you gather requirements, how do you plan, what does the WBS look like, what does the schedule look like, what are some of the risks. And along with these, we give a lot of artifacts from template, checklist, Microsoft Project Schedule, requirements document that you can use as a baseline when you deploy your SharePoint project. And lastly, we also look at how do you handle change throughout this SharePoint implementation, meaning when you first initially roll it out and there are changes that are coming, how do you support that? And how do you manage expectations and scope as well to make sure you're delivering value, or as we put it, you're delivering SharePoint success to your organization?
Okay. And what about the dates and the towns when you will be teaching this?
So currently with our schedule that we have, the soonest event that we have is February 1st in New York, New York. So you can certainly go to the website. I'm sure you'll put this up on your
Yes,
podcast.
this will go up in the show notes. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so we'll have this in New York and key Washington D.C. areas like Rockville, Reston, Alexandria around February and March, and we'll also go out to Seattle in March 10th, and then Atlanta in April. But we're also finalizing our next set of schedule, where most likely we'll be out in Nevada, and looking at the later half of the year, we'll be doing this mentoring session internationally as well. So it's very exciting.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So it doesn't really matter who wins it. If they happen to be in one of these towns here or also internationally, they will be able to join you for free.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, but I'm not going to tell people yet how they can win it for free, because first, I feel like I'm on a sales channel here. We're interrupting this message with the following. Before we did our interview, I went out on the on Twitter and I asked a few people on Twitter. I'm talking to Docs here. What are you questions for Docs in regards to SharePoint and project management? And the first question we have here is from Habib Ben Hassine. And his handle on Twitter is Habib_Shems. And he lives near Paris. And let's see, he doesn't give us anything. He has no bio up, so I can't tell you more about Habib here. All right. And his question for you is as follows, Docs. I've just bought his book. So obviously he bought SharePoint for project management. I'd like to know how we can implement PMBOK processes in SharePoint workflows. How would you do that?
Very, very good question. First of all, bonjour, Habib. I'm just trying out my languages here. But to answer your question before I teach you or show you or point you the right direction, is one of the things you have to realize and think about is, how does the PMBOK process relate to your organization, the kind of projects you work with? I'd hate to say, yeah, take all the 44 processes and use this and that. But if it's not relevant, it might not be as beneficial. So first, check that out. Which of the processes would be beneficial, or if you need to tweak it a bit, then go and do that. Now, specifically in SharePoint, how would you implement it? There's a lot of different ways to implement workflows in SharePoint. One is through the out-of-the-box workflows that comes with SharePoint. So if you have, I don't want to go into technical details. When I say out of the box, it's essentially configurable from the browser. And I have a example where I show everybody how you build a change control process in SharePoint using out of the box tools, no programming. And it's actually a 1-hour screencast where I can certainly give you the resource for that, Cornelius, so folks can watch and see how that's done. So one, it's out of the box. Second is you can certainly use third-party add-ons to SharePoint that can do sophisticated workflows. So there's a lot of third-party workflow products out there. K2, Nintex, Bamboo Solutions has workflow products. So you can do that too. And then lastly, where if it's rather complicated or the workflow is so unique that cannot be done out of the box, no third party, at that point you might want to engage with a programmer or a developer to customize that type of workflow. And that rarely happens. And I suspect with PMBOK processes, a lot of the out-of-the-box workflows or just adding third-party workflows can support that. But to be very specific, again, I'll provide you an example so you can clearly see the steps on what it takes to build this workflow process.
Excellent, excellent. All right, and after this intermission from Twitter, we're coming back to our regular programming, so to speak. So let's repeat. The dates are pretty much February to April, New York, Rockville, Seattle, Alexandria, Atlanta, and then you're also heading out internationally the rest of the year. What kind of a discount do you offer to our listeners, and how can they claim it?
All right, so this is exclusive to PM Podcast listeners. All you have to do when you register, and again, you'll see the link to registration from PM Podcast, is when you register, put the code PM Podcast, and you will get 25% off.
25%, that's nice.
25%, and since Cornelius, you're a great guy, and I enjoy talking to you, that's why we're going to do 25%.
Excellent.
And this would be good for all the published events that you see right now. So take advantage of that.
Excellent. And just so we are clear of this and have full disclosure, there is no financial ties between our companies. The Project Management Podcast, myself or my company, do not receive any kind of commission from any sales that you make on these seminars, whether people use or do not use the PM podcast code. I also mentioned that one of our listeners will be receiving a free entry to your seminar. So those listeners who live in the towns that you mentioned, or those listeners who are willing to fly there on their own cost, they can participate in this giveaway. All you have to do is send an email to our new email address, which is info@pm-podcast.com, and it's important to put the dash in there, so it's info@pm-podcast.com. Put DUX into your subject line, that's DUX in the subject line, and make sure that this email reaches me by January 28th, 2009. That way we can draw a winner before the New York event happens, which is on February 1st. Again, New York, Rockville, Seattle, Alexandria, and Atlanta are the places where you can win a free entry to.
And if you win, just tell us which session you'd like to attend, and certainly we'd be happy to include you in that session.
All right. Now let's head back out to Twitter again. Got a second question here from Twitter, and this one here is from Ryan Endres. Ryan Endres is in Madison, Wisconsin, and his bio, and I like that. When I saw this for the first time months ago, actually, I thought, wow, that's fabulous. He is a full-time, all-the-time project manager. Very nicely done. He doesn't even use up all the 140 characters that you can get here on Twitter for the bio. Says everything. His question to you is, what SharePoint PMO plugins do you like?
Very good. Well, thanks for that question. In fact, I get that question all the time. So just to clarify what that question meant for those not familiar, so apart from using SharePoint out of the box as a project management platform, based on the different needs, there are third-party add-ons you can purchase that when you add on top of SharePoint, it provides more powerful capabilities that can support your project management or even portfolio management initiatives. So going back to the question, which plugins do I like? There's a lot out there. He mentioned EPM Live, PM Point. There's one from Bamboo Solutions or even Kiro. So there's a lot out there, to say the least. And since I'm in this space and I've worked with a lot of these tools, my answer, I should say, is it depends. and not to be trivial here.
Good answer.
No, I know a lot of these organizations and they're really great people. But one of the key things that we have to realize, these are great tools, but again, what is your process like? Well, how mature is your PMO? Because depending on the maturity and the processes that you use, I can recommend a specific tool. So I guess the best way for me to answer it, and this applies to everybody, folks, feel free to contact me. I won't charge. Drop me a line. Cornelius has my contact info, or send me a tweet. I'll be more than happy to recommend or talk to you about a specific solution. But it goes back, it depends on your processes. And in fact, in certain cases, I would even recommend Project Server, which is a great platform. But again, it ties back to what the needs are, what's your project management processes like, and how ingrained are the people in your project management environment around those processes, and I can recommend a specific tool for you.
All right. Thank you, Ryan, for the question. Thank you also again to Habib for the question coming in to us here from Twitter. And here's my final question for you, Dux, for today's interview. Let's assume somebody is starting to implement SharePoint today at their organization, exactly what you're going to be teaching them in your workshop. Then what would you recommend should be their first 3 steps on the road to success? So they don't have SharePoint today, they're starting to implement SharePoint. What are the first 3 things they should do?
All right, first 3 things, okay? The first thing is to get a committed executive sponsor. Because when you deploy SharePoint, it's not like installing Word. SharePoint is an enterprise platform. So what I mean by committed sponsor is this individual would have decision-making power, budget authority, and more importantly, somebody who would champion the cause and help you deploy SharePoint as an organization. Which also means when you get this committed sponsor, this sponsor, most likely will be at a high executive level, should be aware of what SharePoint is for, why the organization would value from it, and more importantly, why long-term it's a good thing. And again, I can provide resources for you on how you can educate this committed sponsor. Step 2 now, what I suggest is you want to educate your key business decision makers. So when I say business decision makers, as you want to roll it out to the organization, you bring in key person HR, operations, IT, finance department, and you educate them not about the technical nitty-gritty details of SharePoint. You educate them why SharePoint is a great platform, and then you map it to their pain points and why SharePoint can help them. So for example, you bring in the head of HR and kind of talk to them about SharePoint, but then ask them, okay, what are some of your pain points right now? And maybe you start off by, I know HR has an onboarding process where we hire a new employee, but does that work all the time? Is there a time where a new employee came in, there's no desk, no table, no login, and then they'll kind of understand what you're talking about. And they go, yeah, it doesn't work because all we do today is do the process via email. And then now you can map it back to how SharePoint can automate a lot of these things without relying on IT to do it. So you start that dialogue, step 2, with the business, collaboratively develop or talk about a solution that will help them to get them excited and more importantly adopt. And then step 3, which is very important, after you engage a committed sponsor, after you've educated the business, step 3 is you have to prioritize how you want to deploy SharePoint. Meaning, do you want to deploy initially as an intranet or as a solution for the HR group, as a solution for the finance group? And that act of prioritization obviously would entail having an authority figure like a committed sponsor and somebody in IT to say, okay, first phase, we're going to help HR. Second phase, we're going to roll out intranet. So those are the key first 3 steps. And notice I didn't say anywhere that, install SharePoint. That's not even in step 5.
All right. Thank you very much, Doug. So we got a committed sponsor, step 1. Step 2, educate your business. And step 3, prioritize your SharePoint deployment. Doug's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you again.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And this was another one of these product-related episodes that you have asked for. You can now find us on the web on our new website, which is www.pm-podcast.com. And again, it's important to put that dash in there, pm-podcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. No matter what goes wrong on your project, you can probably make it look right. Until next time.